This episode of the Council of the First Ones was recorded on July 26, 2021.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Council of the First Ones. I'm your host, Cal. Joining me today is Dave from adultcollector.org. How are you doing, Dave?
Hey, Kelly. Hey, Sean. Oh, just enjoying the weather, really had fun watching Revelation and, been buying some more He-Man toys. So, yeah, it's a good time.
Also joining us from Legends of Grayskull is Sean. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm still in amazement that after 20 years I got to see a new He-Man show. So yeah, can't complain too much. Last Friday was like Christmas morning for me. I felt like a kid again. I literally was running to the TV with my kids going, it's time, let's watch this.
Well, before we get any further, I need to put this out. If you have not seen Revelation, you don't want to know the spoilers, please go back, because we are spoiling the gift that has finally come our way. Masters of the Universe Revelations dropped last Friday, 3 a.m. Eastern Time, midnight Pacific. I know I was at that hour. And the 10-year-old girl came out. Oh, Kevin kept his word that we would enjoy this roller coaster.
Yeah,
I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, like you said, like basically 5-year-old me, the kid that came home running from kindergarten the first day that Filmation He-Man and the Masters of the Universe aired was alive and well Friday morning with my kids. And I was amazed. My kids actually gave me the TV the whole morning. I sat there with them and we were going over stuff while I was watching. And the best part is it made the next generation start to have that ember turn into a flame, because my daughter sat through every episode with me, and at the end she goes, I need the next 5 right now. And I'm like, exactly. And that was a true litmus test for me. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was up till, I watched it right at midnight. And right before they released it, the actual show, they released the soundtrack. And I was up until 4 in the morning, just, trying to keep up with everybody's responses on the Facebook groups.
That's diligence.
Oh, yeah. I literally just turned off Facebook for the whole weekend, pretty much. That and YouTube, because I didn't want to hear any of the haters hate. I was in such a good mood. Even tried to get into Silent Bob and Jay's secret stash, since I was in Jersey, but couldn't get in. The line for that long. Tickets were sold out. He did a live show on Red Bank. I mean, it was like Christmas and Hanukkah wrapped up together.
Just so you know, Kelly, you're cutting in and out a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why. Wonder if my mic is going and I have to get a new one.
I don't know. Sean, can you hear her okay?
That was fine, but there have been parts where it's been cutting out and cutting back in almost like a lag or something.
Yeah, it sounds more like a kind of a internet lag rather than a mic issue.
Okay. Yeah, no, internet's been acting weird all summer around since it's been building up.
Hmm.
But
We can
we've got to
push
get
on.
down with, yeah. Yeah, there's no way I can switch the mic now because I have to buy a new one.
Okay.
I'll try and get a new one for the next recording. But why don't we get on with our episodes?
Sounds good.
But first, I want to bring this up because I know a lot of people are going to say it was the Tila show. Yeah, she was in almost every episode of Filmation and MYP. We, as the audience, knew her journey. But finally, as a character, she started on her heroic journey towards becoming the sorceress. And the title, it didn't say Tila Masters of the Universe or He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Masters of the Universe.
That's something that you have to point out to many people lately.
I mean, God, episode 6 of Filmation was all about Tila. There was at least 5 episodes from Filmation and 3 from Mike Young Productions that just focused in on Tila and her storyline.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, speaking as somebody that I thoroughly enjoyed the Mike Young Productions Masters of the Universe cartoon, one thing that they did amazingly well on that show is they didn't focus on He-Man every episode. They gave us episodes about Roboto. They gave us episodes about Mossman. They gave us episode even about Orko with the Mossman episode, Orko's Garden. They gave us episodes about Tuvar and Badra who become Too Bad. They gave us an episode about Stinkor. And He-Man was a second to third ranked character in some of those episodes because it was really trying to focus on here's somebody that never got the spotlight. And even Cyclone and stuff like that. I mean, they did enough in those episodes that those are the ones that I enjoyed sometimes more than a He-Man centric episode because Filmation did that. They did that from beginning to end, where it was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And now we have episodes highlighting characters that maybe they were at the bottom of your toy chest when you were a kid. And now all of a sudden, hey, here's Roboto. Guess what? He's actually pretty cool. Guess what? Here's Mossman. He's actually pretty cool, you know? And I mean, Mike Young made me want a Tuvar and Badra figure for as long as that episode has been around because that episode really did make me go, I love this. This is such a cool concept. We finally get to see how Too Bad's created. And so in this case with Revelation, I looked at it kind of like that, where it's like it's an extended Mike Young episode where we're getting to have He-Man is obviously in spirit and he's there. There's definitely like flashbacks. There's him at the first episode, him Adam throughout, and I'm like it reminds me of that where it's giving Tila just here's her journey. This is the adventure, and it's not even the Tila show. Evil Lynn takes center stage at points. She gets the spotlight. Orko gets the spotlight. Robota. It's like anybody who wants to focus on the Tila thing to me is like, okay, did you watch it? Because Orko's definitely a main heavy hitter in this. Roboto's definitely gotten a lot of love online lately. I mean, geez.
I mean, come on. He went there with episode with, okay, this is what you already know. Guess what? We're blowing everything with the sword splitting the first death of He-Man, which was done in the Star comic. For those who aren't from, because I saw a lot of people, and the confirmation that Queen Marlena knew and from Filmation, but never the confirmation. I mean, that first episode was, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, getting to see a lot of the stuff that they put into that episode, even without the drama parts of it, it was like, this is how I played when I was a kid. Like, I literally, it was like, that was how I played with my figures. It was like the stakes. They were all there, you know, and I love that aspect of it. And then when you get to the aftermath and you see Randor's reaction, and when I watched it with my kids, I actually like jumped in my seat to see him doing the whole, casting Duncan out. And all that. I'm like, holy crap, they're going there. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like the first episode started out really strong. I mean, that narration hits you with that amazing music, introducing viewers to Masters of the Universe, what the story is, with with that official artwork that we've seen before, but they reused it and they fancied it up, and it just I loved it. That really gets your blood pumping, for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does.
And when the narrator said only 4 others share this secret, I thought, yes, this is Masters of the Universe. Awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, heck, Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones, he was also Duncan's voice. And I mean, my God,
yeah,
I want that guy to narrate my life, because I felt like a hero listening to that whole, and all that stands between Skeletor and Castle Grayskull is Adam, who becomes he. And like when he got to that part, I was like, this is hitting me the same way that it did every time when He-Man would just walk up to the screen and go, and I became He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, and thwack, except the way they did that, where you see the William George art and they repurposed it with the new H on his chest for the harness, but it's basically the William George art, and that battle cat box.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there going like,
yeah.
I actually was pumping my fist in the air when that part hit, because I'm like,
Yeah.
that's how you introduce He-Man, and that's how you make it look awesome to people that might think it's a joke. That image is so freaking cool.
And I like how they show you right at the end there. It says, the Masters of the Universe, and like lightning hits the castle, and then right there, you see where Castle Grayskull is right away. You see the dirt, the like desolate land. But then it gets right into the episode, and you're still there. You are right where they left you, right there at the castle, and it shows Stridor moving up to the castle, and it's that same environment, and yeah, it's very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And all the toys that we never got to see on screen. Oh my God. And I love the blend of the 2D art with CGI vehicles.
Yeah, Kevin said that they actually, when they started the process, they scanned in a bunch of He-Man toys, like the vehicles and whatnot. That's how they started things off, and yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah, I mean, that's what I want. That's what hits our nostalgia, is make it look like what we saw as kids or what we played with as kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything from the Roton to Sky Sleds, and even little like Triclops's what it was called, Seekers, the little
from 2000X
floating drones.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they just did a marvelous job, and I saw that same kind of animation was used for the castle itself as well. Yeah, and it, like you said, it was a perfect blend.
Yeah, perfect blend where it all fit in. And also, while they were even speaking, they kept using even the toy call-outs for the characters also.
Yeah, when they would transform, you mean, because that evil Lynn does that. I might not be clawful, but I am awful, and all. It's like
Yep.
it made me just I cringed a little bit there, but I'm like, no, this is Masters. They would have said that.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Hearing her voice,
Yeah.
for her first dialogue in the show, and I really enjoyed the special effects that they used for Evelyn's magic. Like when she disappeared, it would have kind of a watery, sound to it and effect.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest. The first episode is the one where I had the biggest question, though, out of any of the other episodes, and it actually comes from the opening sequence, because I thought about it and I'm like, okay, the Faker episode on Filmation, it was a whole thing where He-Man was like, sorceress, I'm hurt, I need help, and she was trying to get help to him and all that stuff. And in this one, I was a little like, it seems a little out of character for the sorceress to just land on the drawbridge and just invite everybody. That was one of those like, why? I don't know why, because like I guess I'm thinking 2000X, they would lock any of the evil warriors in at the palace in their prison or whatever, to have the Spike and Clawful be brought to Grayskull as prisoners. I was like, huh? I that confused me. Just it didn't seem like you would take a prisoner to Grayskull, because where would they put them? I know in the place that they have it, but it doesn't seem like a good idea to bring it to Grayskull. That was my only thing. I get that it's an ambush, and that's the whole thing that matters. But there was that part where I'm like, how did the sorceress fall for this? That was my only real big question that was driving me nuts all week.
Especially when the sorceress pointed out that it was Tila's big day.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was her big day, wouldn't her best friend Adam be there?
Mm-hmm.
That should have sent up warning bells for her.
That, like I said, that out of anything was my only really nitpick of that. Didn't quite land the way that I think he wanted it to land, but it worked. Like the idea of, okay, all of the people are going to be at the palace because everybody associated with the Masters is at the palace. They're the good guys. So as evil warriors, we're going to go and we're going to get into Grayskull because everybody else is doing their thing over there. But like I said, that whole moment just had me questioning. It was like the second time I watched it, I was like, wait a minute. Why would you take prisoners to Grayskull? Why wouldn't you take them to the palace, or whatever? So that whole thing, I'm like, I would have been more suspicious if I was sorceress in this moment. And she just kind of was like, hey guys, how's it going? And then it's like, then all hell breaks loose and you're like, not the best idea, but okay. But
well, it could be that he was just on the way to the palace and he was stopping by for
could be
to use the bathroom or something.
Sorceress, I need to go tinkles.
Exactly.
It will not be a number 2, only a number 1. Sorry, I can't help it. But no, like that did. But I didn't question nearly as much about it after that point. But that just stuck with me as just that was a weird thing. But then everything else stems from that, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You're trying to. This is just getting to. This is the huge fight scene, and to be honest, once that hit, that whole sequence where they're attacking Grayskull, my kids and I both were sitting there going, "Holy crap!" Because the Skelcon's coming out, land sharks, rotons, even Bashosaurus. I'm just sitting there going like, this is how I played when I was a kid. It was like you had to make it like they're just gonna freaking like plow through the drawbridge this time, and it's only her defending it. Wow, like I was just into that moment. So it's like my issues were put aside when I saw all hell breaking loose on the screen after that point.
Yeah, it was so exciting, and I loved seeing Nightmare. I didn't catch the part where the illusion of Stridor went away, but suddenly there was, it was pretty clear that Stridor was Nightmare, and yeah, it was so cool seeing him. And Nightmare wasn't prepared to go down without a fight too. That was cool.
Yeah, like the Duncan's like, screw you, and punches him out. I was like, they took that from Conan when he punched out the camel,
Yeah. Well, or when Triclops in the mini comics punched out Battle Cat.
Exactly, in the cave, yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
Oh man. Yeah, I go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I wasn't just say too, just wiping something off the desk.
Oh. Oh man.
So yeah, I wanted to mention that there seems to be a lot of like animal people in the series, and I was trying to remember. I don't recall that being a thing in Filmation, but maybe 2000X.
Yeah, there was definitely
you had a few animals in the Filmation, but it mostly comes from 2000X. They blended both Filmation and 2000X nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And you were talking about voice actors. Yes, Man-at-Arms, one of my favorite, along with Evelyn. I'm personally not bothered at all with the British accent. I know some people are. Orko, I was really surprised that I would like him so much. Not just his incredible story, which was one of my favorite things about these 5 episodes, but also just how well the actor adapted, and you really felt like, yeah, this is definitely Orko when you heard him.
Yep.
I don't know, King Randor, when he was his first line, I forget exactly what it was, but I thought, this isn't King Randor. But
when he said it's parental pride. Something I hope to have one day, Adam.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think pretty much everything in that scene
when he was out on the balcony.
Yeah, on the balcony when you first heard him, and he made some silly comment, and his voice I felt was really off. But no, once they got into the throne room, everything was fine.
This show, these 5 parts have actually gotten me to. When I was a kid, was never an Orko fan, never really a Cringer fan either, because I was always more. I wanted to see the more adult version, which is what we're starting to get with this show. Mm-hmm. And ironically, the characters that really got to me were the characters that I didn't like originally. And I was kind of annoyed, and not in a bad way, but just in like you had to do. Orko, for me, was one of the best parts of the entire show. Out of the 5 episodes, I could not believe how well that character. I know there's people. Oh, so what? He's like manic depressive and all of a sudden it's like, dude, he's dying. Magic is getting taken from him, and he's a magical creature. He is basically on his last legs, and like that whole, take me on one last adventure, Tila. I won't mess up. I was like, my chin was trembling, and my daughter looked at me, and she just turned back and looked at the screen, and then she turned back later on. She goes, "I saw you cry," and I go, Could you not? I'm like, look at like that whole him begging them to take him on, and the whole, well, when you get to a certain point, you might want to write down the things that you do because you might forget them. They all might blend together. And I'm like, good God, like I've been where he is. Like I obviously not with the magic and all that, but like emotionally, I have been where he is so many times in my adulthood that I'm just like, I was just floored by that. And the performance, the actual Griffin Newman's performance was just like, oh my God. And then when they did the whole sequence with him versus Stairglow, which that was the moment in the trailer that had me getting goosebumps, because I'm like, wait a minute, Orko's not a joke anymore. What are they doing here? And when you saw that whole sequence, I was like, like I had no words for it when it was happening, and by the time it ended, again, tears. I was like, my God,
Yeah.
like they did it,
I
and
was crying at the end of that episode.
I couldn't not. I could not. And like the whole thing with it, it's like, you see a character that is typically the child, that is typically the screw up. And in that moment, it's like, he grew up, and it's like, whoa, it just, and him doing the whole, I'm not afraid. And it reminded me of one of my absolute favorite Filmation episodes, the House of Chakotay. Because one of my favorite moments in there is when Stanlin confronts Chakotay, and he yells "not afraid," and he deflects the bolt at her. Actually, he deflects it, and he saves He-Man. But in that moment, I actually wanted to hear him yell "not afraid" just like that too. That would have been a hell of a callback to Filmation in a moment that deals with the fear of Scareglow, like. But they did that so well. I'm tearing up now remembering it, because I was like, man, did that hit me with a 1-2 punch. And then the other one was Cringer. Really quickly, Cringer with his pep talk to Tila, and then well, you don't forget, you named me Cringer and all that, and him talking about like Adam knowing she's going to still be there to protect Eternia, so he could do what he had to do in that moment to protect everybody. I was just sitting there like, man, and then her wiping the tear and doing the whole good kitty. I'm like, God, that was great. So
Yeah.
yeah, this. Ooh.
It was a special moment.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, yes, Roboto was very impressive too, and his death scene in speech totally reminded me of the Filmation episode with Stridor, where basically Stridor becomes alive and is set free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2000X was the one to make me go, I actually love Roboto, because Roboto's Gambit was one of those episodes where him doing the whole I want to help, and Teela's like,
Yeah.
you're just a game player, Roboto, and he keeps on saying it, and then the next thing he shows up looking like a freaking tank, and Teela's like, oh, and then they send him off into battle, and in this one I just like him. I like that. So, because my neural pathways are yours, then I would be as stubborn as you would be, and he's doing the whole. He's basically feeding Duncan what Duncan would be saying to him, and I absolutely loved when they were fighting the fear illusions, and when he's fighting the zombies, he's like, "I'm sorry, excuse me, pardon me, you'll need medical attention for that." I was like, "Oh my God, I love this."
That was delightful.
I know when he was saying that. I know when he was saying it, all of a sudden I was having flashbacks to Star Trek Next Generation, Data saying all that too.
Yep.
Oh
yep,
yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, and honestly, like they did such a. Somebody brought it up to me, and I didn't think about it watching the show, but then I was like, holy crap! They really the whole 5 episodes from actually from part 2 to part 5. It was like the Wizard of Oz, because Teal is Dorothy, you have Roboto as the Tin Man, and then you have well, technically Cringer was there. He would have been this, the cow. But then you had Beast Man. That's who it was, Cowardly Lion, and all. And I was like, my God, this is hysterical. The parallels you can draw with what they put into these episodes.
Mhm.
Even with that, it's like Teal is on her adventure, but she has these friends along the way. I just, I got a kick out of that too.
And in a way, Andro is a little bit of the Alice, in this story, because she was written to be like just one of us, like a stranger to Eternia or a visitor to Eternia, who's just exploring and learning about, being exposed to this adventure, these people who have gone on countless, uh, you know, countless quests and adventures on Eternia. So
she reminded me of like Ant-Man in the Marvel movies, because like when he meets Captain America, like, oh, I'm how did he said, I'm happy to meet you, but I'm happy to meet me, or whatever he says when he meets Cap and stuff, and it's like She geeks out every time she meets a new master or a new anything
Right.
in it. And yeah, I actually like I was pretty good with how they did her character. I didn't know if it was going to work because I heard she was referring to Tiffany Smith was saying she's like the Barry Allen of the group because Barry gets like, starstruck meeting all these heroes and stuff. I was like, hey, it worked for me for the most part. I didn't find her to be a negative to the show.
Mhm. Yeah, she was all right. She certainly contributed. For instance, when they were fighting in Subternia, and I really liked her interactions with Roboto because she's a tech person, right? And so she helped, hook up Roboto to release like kind of an explosive blast to defeat the bad guys there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And creating the forge using
Mhm.
him and all that was cool too.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, my favorite is Scareglow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
wanted more of Scareglow. He made that episode so creepy when he was speaking. I'm like, oh, more. We need another episode with Scareglow.
It's like when they released that cast list, the minute they said Tony Todd, I just sat there going, you did it. You cracked the code. That is who he should be. Like there's no other voice actor I could think of that should be doing that voice than Tony Todd. And he proved it. And it was interesting even watching the animation on that part because I felt like the animators really did step it up when he was in frame. There was almost this, we're presenting
Yes.
him for the first time. We're making this, you're going to remember these images and they're going to be burned into your mind. And it really was true because it was fun to see all this new stuff that we never got when we were kids on the original show. And now we're playing with toys that it's like, hey, guess what? You get to play with all of them today. And it's like, yeah, so I was amused though in that episode. You could probably, I don't know if Kevin Smith had anything directly to do with a certain part or not, but I was like, there's some Empire Strikes Back here because when she's fighting He-Man and then she's
Definitely.
fighting her, I was like, that's the cave sequence from Jedi when Yoda's telling
Yeah.
them about don't go in there, you're not ready yet, and it's like there it is right there. Just and either the writer, I think it was Tim Sheridan that did that episode. I think he did, and I think either he drew upon that, and Kevin Smith probably was like brilliant, or Kevin Smith was like, we need a little Empire in this because that's going to be awesome. And either way, I liked it. I kind of saw it
Yeah.
coming, but I was like, no, I liked what I saw there, and I appreciated they went there with it.
Well, and I just judging by the screenshots, I thought it was going to be Faker. Because of the red eyes.
The red eyes, yeah.
I was wrong. But yeah, I blame it on people who made the trailer. They were sneaky. They were very sneaky about chopping it all up and twisting things around. But yes, Scareglow got a pretty decent amount of screen time. I feel like so many characters got very little screen time. I hope that they get more in the next 5 episodes, and that we see more characters like Manny Faces and Panther and Buzz Off and Mechanic and all the rest. But yeah, Scareglow, I think they did a great job. And honestly, I haven't watched anything else with Tony Todd in it except for Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. So the whole time I was thinking, this is Kern. This is Worf's brother. Awesome.
See,
you missed all the Candyman?
No, I honestly don't watch, I don't know if it's a horror movie or what, but yeah, I haven't watched it.
I knew him from The Rock and The Crow. Those were the two when I was a kid. And the minute they said Tony Todd, I could hear his voice from The Crow doing that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's gonna work." So, and what's fun is he was just as excited to do the part. They've had a couple of videos of him, like the San Diego Comic-Con panel or whatever, and he was so energetic to talk about and he's like, yeah, I got nieces and nephews that want the toys, and all. I'm like, man, this is great. He was definitely pumping the PR in a positive way. I really liked that.
Awesome. You know, I remember what was it? When he first appeared in the mini comic, and he scared the hell out of Prince Adam. Prince Adam was so scared that he couldn't transform into He-Man.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to see that. You know, honestly, I felt like he didn't really scare anybody. He, certainly not Orko, because Orko was brave, and Tila said, "I'm your worst nightmare," and she wasn't scared at all. I thought, give him somebody to scare. Let's really,
Well, he wasn't at his full power, just like a lot of other characters in this, because he said there wasn't anybody to visit him in so long, and he's basically starving. So he wanted any morsel he could. So it's like, imagine, because like I'm thinking of like when Orko did the spell, and you see the wind blowing him back, and he's fighting fighting into the wind of Orko's spell and all that. And I'm like, imagine this guy when he's at full power. He really would scare the crap out of me at that, because he had enough energy that he was still, and he grabbed Orko and all, and he was still fighting back with the magic. And I'm like, him at full power would be a hell of a thing to watch if they ever brought him back post this series,
And he was in Subternia. Remember Orko, when they got to the island, he said, "Oh, I'm feeling more like myself." Because of how close they were to the sword, but Tony Todd nailed it. He makes the perfect Scarecrow for sure. Oh, and it was interesting that they hinted at his origin too, because remember Tila said Skeletor, and he said, "I remember the name," and something about, I've got my note here. Let's see. Let me see. Not quite, but I remember the name, Shadow of a Ruler, and now Ruler of Shadows. That was really cool. And didn't they explain in the 2000X the old comic book, which honestly I don't think I've read too many of those. Didn't they explain that his origin was that he was in the comic a former ruler that was exiled? Or am I thinking of, no, I'm confusing that for the Faceless one.
And I'm feeling stupid, because we actually reviewed that comic around Halloween on our show and on the Legends of Grayskull, and I'm like, what happened was Skeletor just brought him over. He teleport. But even in that one he did too, if I remember right. Yeah, and it wasn't like, I don't remember it being like a ruler. It was more Skeletor brought him there, and he basically said, "You're going to work your butt off for me now, because I brought you here, and you're going to pay." And it, like, he wouldn't let him out of Eternia once he got him there, because Scareglow couldn't get off Eternia, and it was the whole, now you're my slave, basically. Like, you're going to work your butt off to get off Eternia, and you're going to make me go up. You're going to help me fight these guys or whatever. And he didn't have like a dog in either race, but it was more Skeletor can get me out of here, so I'm going to go with him to fight you guys.
All right, yeah, makes sense. I'm so glad that they gave him some character development, some long overdue character development, right? Because in that original mini comic, it was, okay, I'm going to bring you here, and oh, I'm a badass, and Skeletor is like, nope, you and Ninjor, you're my slaves now. You're gonna do whatever I tell you, and you're my minions. And they're like, okay.
he just had that charm, I mean, Skeletor, he's got charm.
So speaking of Skeletor, I really want to enjoy Skeletor. I honestly felt that his voice actor, like a lot of people say, did have a lot of Joker in it, both in the voice but also the dialogue. I honestly enjoyed his Spikor a lot more. His Spikor was just chilling, and it made me. It reminded me of something out of like Lords of the Ring, or or Lord of the Rings and or The Hobbit or something.
Yeah, I agree that there was just a little too much Joker in there. So Mothman, when Skeletor was fighting Mothman, at the very end, Mothman started sounding like the OG Skeletor
Yeah.
with the laugh. I was so happy that Alan threw in that laugh. I'm like, oh, I'd love to see a battle of the Skeletors.
Yeah. Well, it was
Yeah.
great that we could see more of him other than him dying, that he actually was, had some really awesome dialogue in Preternia.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a friend that's Mothman is his favorite guy, and the minute that they showed what happened to him at Grayskull, I was like, "Oh man, he's gonna hate this show now." And thankfully, in episode what was it, episode 4? I'm like, "Oh, okay, he's not gonna be pissed off as much as I thought he was gonna be, because he's at least there. He is in Preternia and all that." Episode 5. Okay, I forget. You just came off watching it for like a little while ago. I didn't watch it since Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to admit, yeah, Mark Hamill, it was like a 50-50 for me, because there were definitely moments where it was like one of my favorite, actually two of my favorite moments with him was the first one was when the power sword breaks in two, and he turns and he sees Adam, and he's just a boy, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that gave me chills when he said that, because I've been waiting to hear Skeletor say that for like 40 years at this point. And then the other moment, and I'm actually really impressed by this moment because it's the first time we've ever heard it in any version, at least vocally, was "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power" from Skeletor.
Yes.
I know.
It like, not only does it shake you to the bone to hear someone other than Adam saying that, knowing this is not a good thing, but on top of that, it was his delivery of it that made me go, that's chilling, but god damn, he sold that. Like, he did. Like, the way he did it, I'm like, you should call Cam Clark and go, dude, this is how you should have done it all along in 2000X. And I don't mean any ill will to Cam Clark, but his "I have the power" drove me insane. But Mark Hamill, in one moment, was like, bam, he knocked it out of the park with that incantation.
Oh, definitely. And the wonderful purple lightning that he was surrounded by. That was so cool. And right after he, presumably killed Adam. Yeah, that was
He
one of the best
kills
parts.
Adam before he says the line.
I know.
But it's like, how many times are we going to kill poor Adam?
Yeah.
Well, that was something I thought about. I'm like, in the Thundercats crossover, they killed him, and now in here they killed him. And I'm like, we can't do this line anymore. It's like, you can kill Superman once, and I'll say, okay. You can kill him twice, and I'll go, yeah, now you're just trying too hard. Like, and this was, for me, it was like, if you ever go to this storyline again, he's got to stay dead, or else I'm just gonna sit there and go, I'm done. Like, I can't. You can't keep doing this to me. You can't.
Yeah.
2 times in 5 episodes. It's like, come on.
I'm sure he'll be healed very early in the next episode. I'm guessing that he'll be healed by the priestess, but who knows?
Well, over the weekend, Kevin Smith had his Fat Man Beyond podcast that was on YouTube. He had Griffin Newman, Orko, on with him, and that was a treat in and of itself. But he actually sat there and he goes, "Do I want to say this? Nah. Do I want?" And because he got to the point, I could tell in the way he was acting, it was flat out like, "I'm sick of people giving me crap about this, and it's only been 24 hours." And he actually said a few things where he was tipping his hat at, okay, this is what we're going to give you in the next 5, because you guys are giving me so much headache about the first 5 I gave you. And he said, episode 7 is going to be where everything hits. And he said that the spoilers for anybody who doesn't want to hear this even. So there you go. So if you guys want to go away, go ahead. He said episode 7 is going to be the biggest knockdown drag-out fight you've ever seen between He-Man versus anything. And he said it's going to be the most phenomenal thing because it's going to be He-Man and Skeletor going head-to-head against each other finally. And he's like, if you guys don't think I give you enough He-Man, guess what? Like, now you're going to get
Stay
this.
tuned for the next 5 episodes.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, it's like even with people complaining about Orko, it's like, did you see a body? There was no body. They made a grave.
And
That was like a marker.
And if you don't see the body and see the death, it didn't happen in comics.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like Roboto, okay, like He-Man, yes, he was in the afterlife, Adam was in the afterlife. Okay. And he did the hero's death, and then he did the hero's sacrifice even to come back, which I thought was actually great. And I love that line that Grayskull said about, all of us chose our powerful forms except for Adam. I was like, that's just cool. Like he doesn't see himself as He-Man. Yeah, and I like that Flea Man because he's tiny, like a flea. Oh.
That was enjoyable, and I thought King Grayskull was pretty cool. I missed the 2000X version a little bit, but yeah, this version was really nice too.
The prequel comic helped with that a bit for me, at least.
Yeah.
Because even in this case, he would have still been, here's this guy, and that's kind of how it felt for 2000X. In this one, knowing at least the first issue of that prequel comic made me go, this guy isn't the same guy, and he suffered some stuff, and I liked that, and I like that there was this, like, he saw Adam and he saw like this, he admired the fact that it's like questionable, like, why wouldn't you choose your powerful form? But there was also this, like, he admired him for it too, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
And who is the gal? The gal who kind of looked like the sorceress.
Because she was the sorceress that ruled over Castle Grayskull right before Sheila went there to try and save her village.
Mm-hmm.
That was I always mispronounce her name, Crudella. But that was she was introduced in the Filmation. I believe it's the origin of the sorceress when we first saw the Horde and learned about the Sword of Power and Protection.
Yeah, I remember her, the gal who basically turned her into the sorceress.
The sorceress, yep.
Yep. Very cool. And we got to see Wundar.
That made me happy. That at Wundar, and oh man, what we had Grayskull, Vicor. That, and it's like I said it before, but I love it. The fact that they incorporated him into classics, and the fact that he is a part of the history, and they put him in this, just made me, like, I was grinning from ear to ear because I absolutely love that figure. And the fact that he came in there, I was like, man. And plus, I like that there is like a nod to Conan in that way too, because some of the birth of this being Conan inspired at least, and all that, so they say. So, but I liked the sorceress not speaking English.
Yeah.
And everybody just looks at her and they just kind of shrug.
Until it's time to say goodbye. That was really cool.
It was, yeah.
I would have loved to have seen them have a big feast, because it kind of struck me as like a Valhalla kind of place, to see them have a big feast and to see Wundar like reaching over for a big loaf of bread or something.
Yeah, exactly. like he just takes the whole thing, and Teela's like, "What the heck?" And then maybe Wundar would be like, or Vicor goes, "It's all he ever eats."
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, Preternia. It was so cool to see Preternia, and and the three towers, and King Grayskull pointing over to his tower, or referencing his tower, and yeah, they did so many cool things with it. I kind of wish though that they didn't reinvent pre-Eternia to be the afterlife, whereas up until now it's been portrayed as just Eternia's past.
Yeah.
Or was it? Or is it kind of the same thing? Is it that was in the past, and so death is basically that time in Preternia near the I do wish it was just Eternia's past. Yeah.
Well, and they took names from the mythology and they kind of just used them in different ways, like Preternia being Valhalla, technically Subternia being Hell, even though Subternia in 2000X was just like it was underneath Grayskull and the caverns and all that stuff. So it's like I was personally, again, like the sorceress decision to go, oh, I'm going to just drop the drawbridge and everybody can come on in for the party. We got Spikor and Falafel with us tonight. It's having that. Yeah, that was a little jarring because it's like I still like the idea of Preternia being Preternia in history. And they could have given it maybe a different, I don't know what name they could have given it off the top of my head, but it could have been better instead of reallocating something that we already know as fans to be one thing. But it's a shorthand, I guess. Yeah, it's like, all right, it is. But it does, because like Adam didn't grow up in that era. So the fact that he's a part of it is a little like, oh, like this isn't your era, but you're still here, and so I don't know.
Maybe they'll clarify that in the prequel comics, since it is taking place in the past.
True. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. And maybe
it might be they might be saying that the Preternia was lost in time. Yeah. That yes, it did happen in the past, but now it is where all the heroes lie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would like to see, at least in the comics, Eldor at some point.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Or I'm curious if they're going to go back to the Preternia at some point, because I feel like introducing some of these things as a once and done isn't exactly. They do callbacks within the first 5 episodes of things. Like you have the little tiny moments, but it's these kind of things where it's like the payoff happens again, like the whole her helping Andra. And she flips her around like later on. That's how He-Man flips Teela around to fight Whiplash and stuff. And there's these little beats like that I'm like, I wonder if they're going to do something with that later on. Because that was my speculation, at least, with the whole death of Adam, quote unquote, death of Adam in episode 5. I'm like, what if there was something where he's like on the verge of death, but then in Preternia they're doing something to get him to go back, and maybe the sorceress and Teela are doing something to get him to stay there, and because I'm like, it would be a heck of a shame to only have these be a once and done kind of a situation or characters,
Right. Yeah. And certainly they need to build in payoffs.
Yes.
Yep. Who knows? Maybe Adam gets to go back there, since he's been killed again returning within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And once Teela becomes sorceress, that's when I'm taking him back again. We all know his secret.
Well, I think that oh shoot, I lost it. I had a thought and I lost it. Sorry, go ahead.
Look, the one line, if they do go back to Preternia and have Grayskull see Adam, they cannot say you're in good hands, because that's just that's that guy.
I thought he sounded familiar.
It was, yeah, it's the Allstate guy, yeah. Or
Yeah.
the way I referenced him was he's the president on 24, but yes, he does do the Allstate commercials as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I have ideas on how I would like to see that moment happen, but I'm also like everything that I thought kind of got flipped on its ear for the first
Yeah.
five. So I'm at the point of like I don't even want to speculate. I just want to sit down and watch the next ones and see what
Yeah.
happens. But yeah, it's like if I hear him say you're in good hands, it's like, oh God. Oh Lordy.
I wouldn't discount anything at this point. Anything can happen. I was going
Yeah.
to say that I wouldn't be surprised if in the battle against Skelegod, maybe he calls on, the power of Grayskull and that hero and King Grayskull and that sorceress gal and Wondar will magically appear and grant him their strength to fight Skelegod, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's another option I was thinking of because,
Yeah.
and it's like Zodak. In a moment like this, you would think Zodak would be like on red alert because the
Yeah.
power has shifted so drastically. His neutrality's got to get thrown out the window. There's a part of me almost hoping on the episode 6 we see Zodak showing up to answer the fact that this is all hell's breaking loose again here, and he has to set it right, and he might bring them with him or something. Like I'm a big fan of this whole the cavalry moment. Like I especially that they've introduced them. So the idea of even maybe if they form like a group to be fighting off Skelegod while they're trying to heal Adam or something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be enough because it's like I'd like to kind of see these guys in battle. Like we only got to see them doing a hunt that was kind of for fun. Let's see King Grayskull let loose. Let's see Wondar go crazy. Let's see Vicor go. No, I would get chills and I'd be like screaming my head off watching it, going like, at least I get to see them in action one time. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
And it's the whole, they sacrifice their own paradise because they know this is bigger than even them right now. Because Adam needs them. I mean that's giving me chills just imagining them going, we have to do this, and then Mossman would be the one, I'll see you when you get back. He's like, I'm not going there again. God freaking blew me up like a blowtorch. I'm not gonna do this twice in one lifetime. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I would love to see Orko come back as the Oracle that we saw in 2000X, or at least to show us that Oracle ended up in Preternia, and maybe again if they, if we do see the Preternia characters again, that he'll be there and maybe he can help lend He-Man some strength.
I just had a thought. I hope they don't go there because I don't want to already figure things out. I really want to be surprised. But there is a part of me that goes, what if it is like Doctor Strange in Endgame?
Mm-hmm.
What if Orko and it's the whole he takes that spell, takes Scareglow away, he goes to Preternia somehow, and then it's the whole they need us, and he teleports them all in, and it's Orko as the Oracle now, and he's like, or Gandalf the White in a way, and have him come in full power. You get the Warriors of Grayskull on top. Oh my God, I'm like, if they don't give me that now, I'm gonna be right in the, it's woke and I hate it because it didn't give me what I wanted. That's all there is to it. But that would be amazing if they went there.
See, and yeah, I agree, and I like to go into movies or new shows with no expectations. I always feel that I enjoy the show more, but I found that it's really hard to do that with something like Masters of the Universe that's so close to your heart, and and so like for instance, I was so excited. I got myself so worked up for Merman. I thought, oh, Kevin Conroy, what? I can't wait to see what Kevin Conroy sounds like doing the gargly merman voice. And it turns out, and there was a little bit right at the end. There's a little bit of that gargleness, but otherwise, it was a pretty normal voice, right? Compared to what certainly what we've heard in 2000X and Filmation.
Yeah, I guess there are some voices that I kind of want to have similar. I don't need them to be identical, but similar. Orko is a perfect case in point. Orko, that version of Orko for me is like, my God, it's like they literally took my childhood and put him into that episode. You know, every time he spoke, it didn't feel like it was Lou Scheimer putting his voice through something to make him sound like that. It literally was, no, that's Orko talking, you know, and it worked. And it's the same with Evil Lynn for me. Like Lena Headey was like, she knocked it out of the park. Liam Cunningham, another one, a Man at Arms. But then when you got to like Cringer, for instance, the stuttering was gone, and I almost had it like he didn't sound cowardly. He almost sounded smarmy at times or something. There was something about his voice that wasn't landing for me. And then the other one for me was like Merman, because Merman had this. It really did sound like I'm Batman. Oh wait, I'm Merman. You know, and when I heard it, I'm like, out of anybody that you could have chosen to voice Merman, that is not anybody that I would have picked. I would have picked Kevin Conroy. He could have been, if Tony Todd wasn't available, he would have been interesting to be Scareglow, perhaps. Or some people were saying, what if he was Man at Arms or whatever? That would have been fine. Or even, hell, it would have been interesting to have him be Skeletor and just see how that would have gone. Maybe it would have been different. But yeah, when I heard Merman, I was like, why did you pick Kevin Conroy for this? Like, he's not that guy, you know. Like, Merman should have that blah, 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 in his voice, you know. I can't do it. He did a little bit, but I was like, I kind of wanted it to be not Filmation, because Filmation was a little too much, and even 2000X was a lot, and I wasn't into the 2000X. But I don't know, there was something about it where I was like, that is not how I picture or how I hear Merman in my head ever.
Yeah.
And it took me out of it every time he was in talking at that point.
Thankfully, for the most part, they did. You know, everybody was an appropriate choice for the character. I guess, Cringer didn't really do it for me. Teela, honestly, just in terms of the quality, the appropriateness of the voice, I felt that her voice sounded too young for Teela. And just to tie in with, the designs of the characters, I felt that her later design and maybe Beastman's later design felt like they were younger versions of the characters rather than older versions of the characters. Whereas other characters like, Evelyn didn't really change. I mean, you saw her as an old woman, but that was a disguise. Man in Arms was certainly aged, right? I got that feeling. Adam was intentionally not aged, of course. Orko definitely aged, but for Teela, Beastman, I think those twos in particular, they kind of felt like almost like they made him younger.
I'd say from my perspective, like design wise, I was kind of underwhelmed by Beastman and by Merman in the future part of the story, because like they had such when you see them in the beginning of it and they have their typical costume or the typical garments on, it really popped, because Powerhouse really did give it that, like, we're giving you what you knew as kids, but we're amping it up, and Merman on the flashback looked amazing, in my opinion. He really, like, that was one of my absolute favorite Mermans in animated form from a visual perspective. And then you go to, well, now he doesn't have his chest piece and he's missing an eye and he's just kind of angry now. And I'm like, oh, he looked regal in the original one. And then when you see him that way, he really did look a little more like, he looked less ruler like, and a little more, he's like one of his henchmen now. And I was like, oh, all right, and Beastman. My daughter actually said, out of all the she's like, I don't like Beastman. I'm like, well, what's wrong? He's got a beard, and she didn't like that he braided the beard. And I'm like, for me, it wasn't even that. It was more I missed the piece that goes around his neck and all that, because that makes him look feral. And like taking all that off, it's like, well, I've seen that version because that was my Beastman as a kid, because I lost his armor. And I'll tell you what, he wasn't that interesting looking anymore to me. And that's kind of when I saw it in the show, I was like, all right, I don't really personally like that either, but I like the character though. I liked how loyal he was to Evelyn to a fault. And I liked that he was going on his gut instincts of we have to do this, versus it was all about the allegiance of Skeletor or the allegiance to Evelyn or whatever. I thought that was pretty cool. And I like the infighting even with the villains. I like that Triclops was doing his own thing. I like the Trap John and Blast Attack and Whiplasher with him. But then you have Evelyn doing her own thing. And even she's like, Merman, you double crossing. I like that there is no loyalty between thieves, but in that group, once Skeletor's taken out of the mix. And I really enjoyed seeing how all that played out, and the fact, that I got my faction and you don't have, it's like, oh, screw you. You're going to be over there and you do your thing now. So.
Oh man, you totally reminded me. One of my favorite lines was actually from Merman when he said, "You forgot about Merman. Now you'll never forget Merman." That was kind of badass. Yeah.
Well, it actually was true, because half the time, if you think of Masters of the Universe, like I personally, the first ones that come to my mind for Skeletor's side, usually it's Skeletor, Beastman, Merman, Evelyn. But in the cartoons, you notice how little he would be in there, and it'd be more like Triclops or Trapjaw would be in that position instead of Merman sometimes. So yeah, I almost feel like that was poking fun at the fact that he hasn't gotten his due for how long either. He's almost like the Aquaman of Masters in that way.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, as far as the design, they should have. Teal does look okay. The voice should have been aged a little bit more. It was too much like her when Adam was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they could have done a little bit more with Sarah Michelle Gelbart with making her sound older.
Right.
Because I know every once in a while it sounded more like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, her voice hasn't aged since that show. So
I know.
When I hear it, I automatically think of like first season Buffy at Sunnydale, and it's like, okay, so she's just gotten out of study hall and she's recorded this really quick or something, And I'm not trying to bash Sarah Michelle Gellar. I'm not, it's like that's her natural voice. But I keep thinking, in the case of Teela being who she is in this show, maybe they could have gone with someone who is a voice actress that isn't bringing the baggage of Buffy and the other stuff that she did 20 years ago, and bringing something else to it. Like one podcast I listened to just last week was saying Tara Strong would have been a good person for Teela, perhaps, instead of Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
And I got to admit, Tara Strong, she's got so much range that I would have been like, that works, and if my daughter would have found out Tara Strong was the voice of Teela, that would have set her completely into orbit, because she voices how many of her favorite characters on other shows anyway. And she can do it,
100
though.
characters with Tara Strong.
Exactly. And she can pull off, I mean, she was just Miss Minutes in Loki. So she can pull off that, younger vibe, because she had that going with that character. But then she could also pull off something a little more darker or, mature even in the after the incident. Raven, exactly.
She's Raven.
Yep.
Where there you go, the older, darker. I mean, even Twilight Sparkle, she went from really young to the really older version of Twilight Sparkle for the season finale.
Exactly. And I actually know what you mean by that because my daughter watches that one too. So there you go.
Hey, I'm still shocked that she was Timmy Turner.
Oh.
But yeah, the voice, it didn't help with the palace scene where basically the king and queen just find out that their son is dead, and she's coming across as this like whiny, like, but let's talk about my feelings kind of thing. Wasn't a fan of that, but I did like how she looked. Her design with the she was ready for her ascendance to becoming the man at arms. Yeah, I really like that old classic look.
Yeah.
One thing I also love with Tila's story, every time someone wanted to tell her about who her mother was, they got cut off.
Yeah, that was so annoying. Like, come on, just tell her. Just interrupt her back. Like, no, you're going to listen. This is important. This is going to save the universe.
No more family drama now.
Family drama later on, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
But He-Man, Chris Wood, I was really I honestly wasn't sure if I would like his He-Man. And I think he nailed it. He did an excellent job.
I agree. But it's crazy how he pulled the dual role off for me in that way. The only thing with him was by the power of Grayskull was a little awkward. It almost sounded like an oath more than him like a calling into battle kind of a thing. It's like it was so earnest. It was by the power of Grayskull. It's like I pictured somebody in like a school play saying it that way, and having that sincerity to him. Versus, like when you hear John or by the power of Grayskull, or even Cam Clark, which I loved his by the power of Grayskull immensely, but when he did I Have the Power, it's like it reminded me of like it's just like boom. I mean, and the way they did it, I know there's people out there that were like, well, he wasn't He-Man when he yelled I Have the Power. I'm like, no, I kind of dug that he was getting to become He-Man in that moment when he yelled it, and then he got the power and all that stuff, and his transformation. Everybody, oh, it's Sailor Moon. I'm like, no, it reminded me a lot of like. There were how many animated shows that I watched as a kid where it's like you'd have that moment where like something would come onto like Centurions that had like something would hit their body and and all this stuff going on to them to create the new version of them that they were going to be, and even like Voltron and all that stuff. I was like, it worked for me on that level, and just seeing the whole thing play out as a transformation. That's probably the second best one I've ever seen after Filmation, because 2000X was hit or miss a lot for me on that.
Yeah.
But I Have the Power was whoa.
The only thing I missed with transformation was that it did straight over in front of Castle Grayskull with the backdrop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I could forgive it for some reason.
Cringer, and I love how they did with Cringer, how he was trying to get away as usual, and spending the time to actually put on the pieces. Not okay. He just got shot. He's battle cat. Boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I always prepared myself for Filmation gave it to us the way they did it, and to be honest, I still like that version still quite a lot, because there is something to be said about the simplicity of he's there standing there, and then all of a sudden that flash happens, and he's standing there as another character, as He-Man, or Battle Cat. And I to this day that still works for me. And like you don't need to see them getting dressed; they just come out. They come out both fists fighting. But then the other part of me is like, this one was so colorful, and this one was so interestingly done. Even like the turning around, both of them to show all the armor getting put on. It's like, well, back in the day, knights had to take time to put their armor on when they were about to go into war. I kind of dug it from that angle, I think, this time around.
Yeah, good point. Well, and Man at Arms, he had to get geared up for battle. He had to dump out the fruit from his helmet and put it on. That was a fun moment. I like that.
Yeah. Man at Arms on this was, I got, again, I was never the biggest Man at Arms guy. He actually was one of my favorite characters too, because he's got like a long road back to good graces with how many people on this show. Yeah. And and the whole, if I even try to melt iron, if I try to melt metal to make anything, they're going to arrest me, or they're executing me or whatever. And I'm just like, this poor guy put how many years of his entire life to being that guy to the royal family, and he's their man at arms. He's also a confidant of the king and everything. And this one moment screws it all up, and you can just tell he really wants to just go home again. There is that he's ousted, but it's like he doesn't want to be ousted. He knows it was for the reasons. He knows the reasons why they did what they did. And it wasn't to be, like against Randor or treasonous or any of that, which, and him in general, like they did such a good job in his episode, the Most Dangerous Man in Eternia, the third episode, where he fought all the minions of Merman off, that I was like, man, that's like freaking watching Batman in action. It's so freaking cool.
Well, and I liked how Evil Lynn actually spoke about him, saying that, yes, I told all the snake mountaineers, which that's a weird phrase, but I told all the snake mountaineers that Man at Arms is the real threat. He's the most dangerous man on Eternia or something like that.
It works, and that's the thing. Like 2000X had me actually reevaluating the character, because like he already went through the war with Randor, and they fought Keldor and all that stuff, and the uprising and the Great Unrest or whatever. And then you have him being the guy training Adam and training He-Man and that. And he even got to go toe-to-toe with Skeletor in the one episode. And I'm just sitting there watching that show going like, I really did not see Man at Arms like this. And this is actually working for me. It's making me reevaluate the character. And I felt like that spilled over into this show. And that just made me happy, because I like that momentum. He's still not a favorite character of mine, but I can respect that about him. Kind of like I'm not a big Batman guy, but I respect the character because of what it means to people. Sort of the same thing with Man at Arms here.
Love Batman, at least the animated series and the old comic books. But yeah, you're right. And even his action figure, his new one, looks really badass, and yeah, they did a hell of a job portraying and writing and picking the right voice actor for Man at Arms. Well done. Yeah.
He top 3 for me of this new series. Like Orca is probably number 1, and then I'd say he. Go ahead. You want to rate them? Is that what you're gonna say?
No, I want to get this all organized here. So you're number 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is Orca.
Number 1 would be Orca, Griffin Newman. Number 2 is Evil Lynn, and number 3 would probably be Liam Cunningham. And then right there, right underneath them, almost tied for number 3, would be Chris Wood, because I was very impressed with how he brought soul to Prince Adam and to He-Man. In that's a thankless job in some ways, and he really did do some wonderful work. But Liam Cunningham beat him just a little bit, because that opening narration, like you were talking about, he knocked that out of the park like crazy.
What about you,
I
Kelly?
would go with Evil Lynn. Evil Lynn is more than Orko. And then Man at Arms with number 3.
We're not that different. There you go.
Oh man, And there were so many characters that had very little or no dialogue, like, of course, Fisto and Clam Champ and
yeah.
Blast Attack, And I thought, they're not mimes. Give them voices. Let me hear them at least cry out. Give us a war cry or something. But yeah.
Last Attack had a sigh of relief, at least. That part killed me. When he had to deactivate something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't help him at the end.
Exactly. Well, he shouldn't. That was one of those characters. I'm like, this is why they never put him in. I mean, they want to talk about Stinkor being like crazy on Filmation. Like, Blast Attack is basically a kamikaze device. What the heck? Like, seriously. What are yours, though, David? I interrupted you.
Oh, it's fine. Let's see. I'm thinking. Okay. I'm gonna do Man-at-Arms #1. I'm gonna say a tie for Evelyn and Orko. Okay. And then I'm gonna say another tie for third place. He is gonna be He-Man, Triclops, and Mossman.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Those are my favorites. Yeah.
Now, how many of you are converting to Triclops is Colt?
Oh.
That was like, I almost felt like Powerhouse was like, can we please do some Castlevania stuff on this show? And instead of Castlevania, they got to do tech, but it was still like that. Like my daughter watching it, she was worried about that little girl. That they were up there about the chalice and all that stuff, and she's like, when the fight happened, she goes, "What about that little girl? Is she okay?" And I'm like, she's up there. I guess she's okay. And then all of a sudden she turns her, does the exorcist head thing. I'm like, oh, you had to do that. And my daughter just looks at me like, what the? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know it was going to happen.
I didn't write it, okay? Yeah.
I felt bad. She's only seen that in like one comedy movie. And it's like, it's not scary when it's there. But when you do it and that smile on that face, it's like, oh, I'm going to have nightmares to deal with tonight with her, I'm sure.
Right.
Oh.
I really digged the Screech. Screech being the altar.
That was awesome. That was so awesome. I actually was like yelling.
The motherboard.
Yeah.
I could hear the soundtrack to that movie in my head, Heavy Metal, the animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That heavy metal, And but I kind of really wish that they would do that thing where they would hold Tila down or Andra, whichever, and force the mouth open and pour the black liquid into their mouth, like Indiana Jones, right? From the Temple of Doom. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least if they were to try to, like the liquid was coming down and somebody interrupted them or whatever. But yeah. Otherwise, Triclops Pope wasn't a fan of the design, but his voice, he gave it his all, and I commend him for it. Yeah, he really lent a lot of power to Triclops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it the after show? He was the one saying once the power is gone of Skeletor not being there, it's not necessarily the person that's the best person to lead. It's the person who's the loudest that will make the people listen. And that's how you get to be that character. And I was like, out of anybody they could have picked to play a role like that, you got me there. Like,
yeah.
I figured it had something to do with like along those lines. But before we knew there was going to be the time jump and before we knew all this other stuff, it was like Henry Rollins is Triclops. Like, wow, like what are they offering him to do this? That's nuts, because Triclops really wasn't a big character in at least Filmation, and it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
What was it?
Either,
The sprocket, about worshiping the sprocket or whatever. It's like, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
To live in diode, that part killed me. To live in diode, it's like, oh god. But yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Yeah, very impressed by Triclops. Kind of in the part where Trapjaw loses an eye, like you hear this the squish sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I figured we wouldn't
Oh, and
see him
when
after that.
yeah, and when Blast attacks, like furiously trying to frantically pressing the buttons on his chest so he wouldn't explode.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
was
I love
that
that.
was brilliant. Yeah, great.
And then Andra throws the star at him. Like,
Yeah.
oh shoot,
Yeah.
I'm going below.
When it's great that it's not that he was going to blow everybody up. You just see them like knocked out, and of course Blast Attack is separated into two parts, just like his toy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So many little Easter eggs like that in this show. Like probably my favorite was when you see Orko for the first time in the future, and on his table is sitting the medallion that he was given,
Mm-hmm.
that says hero on it in the Filmation cartoon, and the pyramid that was used to bring Driel to
Mm-hmm.
Eternia. What were you saying, Kelly?
I was going to say the same exact thing that you were with the pyramid and all like that.
That really got me. Yeah.
What's funny is doing Legends of Grayskull with Matt. In the last year, we covered episodes that I wouldn't have thought were going to play out on this show, and that actually mattered in the. So, like, he loves Curse of the Spellstone, and we reviewed that episode, and then Majestra's there, and then we did, and then like obviously the shaping staff being on the episode, but then the one that got me the most was in one of the most dramatic sequences in the whole thing. We did the Rainbow Warrior review, and that ended up, I don't even remember that from my childhood, so I watched it almost like with a fresh pair of eyes when we reviewed it, and I was really like touched by that one. That one kind of got me a little choked up with the whole interplay with Adam and Marlena, and the way that they did that nod with everybody doing Adam didn't make it, and then she turns and does we lost our son. It's like, whew, like that was, and it's like I almost want to be like, Matt, did you read these things before they were released? Because why did you made me watch all these episodes that ended up I'm watching it going, holy crap, I watched that last year. So yeah. Oh, but that was definitely one of my favorites, because there were people in tons of groups this week that they're like, how did she know? And I'm like, Rainbow Warrior, check it out on YouTube. I'm like,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
I wouldn't have known
The
either unless we
mother
covered them.
always knows.
I love that bit. I love that because it's so freaking true. And what? Yeah, mother, why did you release me out of everybody? Well, a mother knows, Adam. I've always been proud of you.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, despite all of the shitstorm, if I may, that's happening right now on social media for Masters of the Universe, that's plaguing our community, you might say. It has brought a lot of people in who do love this new cartoon, and who have loved Masters of the Universe for a long time. Not to say that the people who dislike it aren't the same way. The people who are a lot of them who are passionate, who didn't like the show. They're passionate because they love Masters of the Universe, and they grew up with the toys just like everybody else. Um, so, I think it's in that way, it's very interesting to see that yes, there are a lot of people out there that still have very fond memories of Masters of the Universe, even if it's not on, even if they haven't really thought about it much for a very long time.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, something like this will bring you right back to your childhood, for good or for worse.
Well, the other thing too, and I know this is a divisive thing within like any fans online lately and stuff, but there are a lot of people out there that part of the reason that they hate it is the fact that it's changing, and we're witnessing that right now. Other than 2000X, there hasn't been a legit like here's something that's progressing the story beyond the DC comic books that have hit in the last like 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like I personally, and this is just me, and I've expressed this opinion so many times on Legends of Grayskull. It's just I want to see something where it's not the same thing every time. And part of the problem is the DVDs and having everything that you can watch it all the time. It cements you into this is what it has to be every time you go to watch it or you're supposed to enjoy it. And for me, I'm like, Batman doesn't have to be the same movie every time they do Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Superman isn't the same. I'm like, all these other properties get the chance to do something different to bring a new take on it for a new generation. And this is what they're trying to do. You don't have, I love Superman and I hate Man of Steel. That doesn't mean that's the only Superman movie I'm ever going to hate or love. It's like, that's one take that I didn't like. This is a take on Masters. You might like it, you might not, but it's got to evolve. It's got to progress somewhere for us to actually take it seriously and to look at it and go, here's the stories you can tell. Here's the mythology that's already rich that you can build with, and that to me is kind of what it's about right now. We're seeing something that none of us, all three of us right now, we're on this show going, we don't even know how this is going to work out. And that's actually exciting for me to go, I don't know how this is going to end. And I want to see what happens next because like the safety rails are off. We've gotten to see stakes being raised where Filmation never could have taken them.
Well, and there are stakes, and we're seeing them right now because, frankly, with the negative reaction to this series, at least the first 5 episodes, that honestly puts future projects at risk. Everybody knows it. That any future cartoon or toy line or movie, they can decide, you know what, we're not going to touch it because it's not going to be profitable. People are going to stop. They're going to hate whatever we put out, and they're not going to buy the toys that we've invested in to make money off of, and so on and so forth. So I really do hope that the next 5 episodes are going to be spectacular and that everyone enjoys them for the good of the brand, for the good of the community, honestly, because frankly, I don't want to spend the next 20 years hearing how this series is woke and hearing about, a lot of the comments that have been all over social media lately.
Well, on Kevin Smith's show this past weekend, he did bring up the fact Netflix doesn't look at those reviews. Netflix looks at a whole different way than worrying about what Rotten Tomatoes is saying about this at this point. They look at it from how many people are viewing it, how many views is it getting. They're not worrying about the percentage from audience reaction, and also the critics' reaction is really good. So there's that on top of it. Like the last, I'm sorry about that. What?
I was just agreeing with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it was certified fresh, if I remember right.
Certified
You
fresh,
started
like
out with 92.
92, yeah.
And anything above an 85% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, they certify it as fresh.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So there's that at least.
Yeah.
When now coming down to on the Mattel side, because they do listen to all those critics. Okay, Scott Knightlick used to tell all the time when he was the brand manager, and bring in fact, one of Crespo's reviews was brought in and used against Scott Knightlick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's a double-edged sword with all these crybabies who don't know the brand, who are complaining about it, who might have picked up a book or looked it up on Wikipedia to get whatever information they have.
Mm-hmm.
They need doing this clickbait. I mean, I saw one. What do you need to know about Masterverse before watching Revelation? And they were using Return of Fake clips as if it was canon.
Mm-hmm.
I was cracking. This is those you don't know.
Oh, there's tons of there's been more than a few YouTube channels that have popped up into my feed because of Revelation and because of Masters, and every time I'm like, I've never seen you before, and I don't think that you know what you're talking about. And I'm not trying to be a snob, but I'm just looking at it from a look. If you legitimately look like you're just hopping on the bandwagon of wanting to bash something, I'm not interested. And the one good thing I saw out of all the negativity is I feel like there are more and more people that when they see these negative reviews, they're actually coming back and going, I watched it, I liked it. And it's like, you don't have to love everything about it, but give it a chance at least. That's kind of my mentality. Like, just don't listen to all the people and make your decision based on watching it first. And then if you don't like it, that's fine. You can do your own thing. But like that was one of the worst parts about leading up to this. I was actually like depressed almost Thursday night going, I don't want to go into this show and find out all these people that are already spewing the crap that they're spewing are going to have a field day on Friday. I hope that this really is not going to be that kind of a show. And by the time I finished with it, I'm like, no, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved it for the reasons I love it. And I noticed there's more and more people that are coming at it saying the same thing. It might not be identical to what they had, but growing up, but it's like, hey, this is something new. It's making you guess what will happen next.
Sure.
So
that's the important thing. If you liked it, then great, mission accomplished, right?
I'd say as long as you watch it without listen, like it's okay to hear the negativity, but don't just go negative just because other people are saying it. And go and watch it for yourself first. If you don't like what it is because it doesn't work for you, that's your thing, and I can respect that, no problem. But if you're just going to jump on the bandwagon because it's the thing to do right now, then no. It's like you're wrong on every level in that way, as far as I'm concerned, because you didn't even give it a shot yet. You're just enjoying going in and jumping in and causing a ruckus,
Sure. And certainly people who are critical of the show, there are plenty of fine points that they make, some reviewers and whatnot, and I get that, but at the same time there's the other end of the spectrum of, oh, this person turns out they didn't even watch the show, but they've watched a lot of videos about how awful the show is.
Mm-hmm.
Which it drives me nuts. But at the end of the day, you can ruin a show or a movie or toys or whatever it is, anything. You can ruin it by digesting, videos, articles, whatever messages are out there, and it's easy to get to go negative or to hate a thing even though you haven't experienced it for yourself, like So just that would be my message is, yeah, watch the show. If you don't like it, yeah, that's fine. Not everybody's going to like it. If you love it, awesome. You know? But let's not, certainly let's not let's not die mad about it, all right? Let's not just decide to make everybody else miserable
Yeah, let's
because
not
they
do
like the
that.
show. And and also don't, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, while I see the critics of the show and them saying that anybody who likes the show is this and that, it goes the other way too, where I've seen people who, are overly defending the show, are attacking to an extreme the people who don't like the show, and that in itself is its own toxicity. So so I don't want to bring a message of just, hey, can't we all get along, but I do think that people just need to generally settle down about all this.
See, the people that are the opposite way, like what you were just talking about, are the people who also are just tired of hearing the negativity, because that was unfounded. That was speculation. So I can understand them having I finally got to see it and I can tell you it's not this, but I agree. Like there is an element of, look, you don't have to be a sore winner either. Like you could at
Right.
least, to me, it's like, if you don't like it and you have reasons that you don't like it, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that you're you're this or that or whatever. It's like, look, okay, but if you're going to give me, the list of it's woke, Teal is a lesbian, blah blah, I'd be like, you're barking up the wrong tree here, because none of, especially the lesbian bit, I'm like, where was that in this at all? No, it was nowhere in this. It's there if you want to see it, but I didn't see it as that. And they never explicitly go there. It's like, come on, really? It's that whole, like, look in the mirror to see what the problem is versus, blaming it on something else because it's you reading into it. It's not the thing doing it to you. But,
Right.
that's just me.
Yeah, a lot of. I've heard about this kind of thing happen to other collector communities and other fandom communities for I don't know, let's say Marvel or Star Wars, but yeah, we're certainly getting that now. We're
lucky us, right?
Hooray! It's our turn. Yeah. But,
so if we do positive note,
yeah,
how the first 5 episodes, how excited has it gotten you to watch the back 5 episodes at this point, and any thoughts of where that's going, like just vague thoughts? What do you think is going to happen with this epic they're doing?
I would say, I don't know if you want to go first, Kelly.
Well, I know I am super psyched. I'm in a different universe on when we can get those next 5. I have a feeling battle between Skeletor and He-Man won't be just one episode. We know it's going to be inside. It's going to last at least 2 episodes, because that has been 40 years in the making. I want a good ball between the two of them.
And this is how you're going to get it, because they are definitely not pulling punches.
Yeah.
And no more to go back to Adam. Stay as He-Man, since everybody knows your secret now, boy. You can't put that back in the bottle. But that's what I am looking forward to. Let's have that ultimate fight that we've been wanting since we were kids. How about you, Dave?
At this point, I honestly have no idea how the last 5 episodes are going to turn out. None. Of course, we've heard a lot of things of what it was going to be. The first 5 episodes were very excellent in a lot of ways, and but yeah, I have no predictions about what's going to happen in the other 5, and I just really hope that it'll be really very enjoyable. Yeah, and I'm at this point, I guess, more excited than for and I've said it many times, the sticker book. I'm excited for the sticker book. I'm excited for the coloring books. I'm excited for the lunchbox. Really, whatever nostalgia tugs at my that nostalgia from my childhood and yeah. And some of the toys aren't bad looking either. The Masterverse toys, Man at Arms, whew, what a great sculpt, and Spikor too. Oh my gosh, they knocked that one out of the park. Except for the articulation, I don't care for that. But yeah, yeah, I'm just all right, bring it. Whatever it can only go up from here in terms of fan reaction, right? So let's hope that that things turn out overall to be very positive for the community.
Let's see. I'll say at this point, I know me and my daughter both are just like, she said it the other day, I want the next 5 right now. And that's how I felt Friday. Like, I wanted to just sit through the entire thing. And, then it was lunchtime. I really wish we could have had all 10 of them in a row and just go through this epic tale.
Absolutely.
I now that I've brought it up, I'm kind of hoping they do the whole, the defenders of Eternia having to come to Eternia again, and they're holding the line while Adam's trying to get healed. If they went there, I would probably start screaming my head off, geeking out because they did it. But I feel like that has to pay off somehow, because they even did the Skeletor mess. He turned the Havoc staff into a spear to fight He-Man in the first fight. And then he uses it as a spear later on to get Adam when he's transforming. I'm like, they've done a few of those things where something happens in one part and it pays off later. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they bring other heroic warriors to the table, because we saw a lot of evil warriors in this one. We got to catch up with almost every one of Skeletor's main guys. And it's like, where's Ram Man? Where's Stratos? Where's Mechana? I want to see, and Fisto. Fisto should talk this time. I want to hear Fisto. So, but yeah, I agree with Kelly.
We need Fisto to confirm he's Tila's daddy.
2000X with it, huh? I'm cool with it. However it works out, it would be cool. But yeah, I agree with Kelly, though. I hope that whatever fight happens I'd love to know it's still going on in the background if they're doing something else. Like they're going and trying to find help or something. And it's like, this fight is still raging at Grayskull between the two of them. And it's like, this is what you've been waiting for all this time. And if finally, like Frank Langella said, let this be our final battle. Let's do it. Make that thing blow up. So...
By the way, wasn't that so cool that Skeletor actually said that?
He did as well here. Yes, I mean they cribbed how many things from the movie, because I mean even the opening narration, it was pretty much like cribbing from the movie, and then a few lines of Skeletor's is like, yeah, they're not having that be discounted here. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was really clever writing, I think, how he hid inside of Evelyn's staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And another nod at the 87 movie somebody brought up in one of the groups today, which I was like, holy crap, I didn't even catch that. The device that Teela had to find that glove in episode 2 actually was the device that Man at Arms was using in the movie. to find
That
He-Man or
changed.
something. It was their locating devices, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I'm like, "That's right. That is. It's almost the same design." And I was like, "Man, that's so fun that they put." And they did the hoverboards and all that too. I mean, that was a very obvious one, but that one was like, "Man, that's so cool. They didn't even drop that little piece of equipment in there." So
Yeah, that was pretty badass.
I'm sure Kelly has to go to bed. I should shut up now.
Hey, we've been going for 2 hours.
That's what I'm saying. Oh.
I know my dogs are looking at me like, Mom, it's past your bedtime.
Blame it on the bald guy. That's all there is to it.
No. I set an alarm just to wake up early on Friday morning so I could see it.
Maybe I'll you know post it as like a part 1, part 2
There you go.
video.
Yeah.
Break it up a little bit.
Okay, why don't we say our goodbyes? Because I know we'll probably be continuing this on the next episode anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
That and the bad news advent calendar is officially canceled. I just got the email this morning from Big Bad Toy Store refunding me my money.
Oh.
So sad. My goodness.
I wanted that Orco.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for another episode of Council of First Ones. Remember, check out our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Till next time, good journey.
And this is David Clark, owner of adultcollector.org. Thank you so much for spending 2 hours of your day to listen to us go on about Revelation and to enjoy talking about the new show. I would encourage everybody to check out the new home of the Origins fans group on Facebook and the 41,000 member He-Man and the Masters of the Universe fans group. And thank you again, Sean and Kelly. As always, good journey.
And this is Sean Scavarna. And if you want more, which I'm sure you're sick of this at this point from me talking, but if you want more Legends of Grayskull podcast, we'll be doing our own review of it. So me and Matthew Deutsch will be talking shop about this and even going episode by episode to get into a little more depth. So there's that if you aren't sick of me yet. But yeah, this was a great Revelation ramble. I loved it. And it was nice to get this because I haven't really talked to many people about it. I've been waiting until I could do this. So this was great. And yeah, until next time, thanks for having me on. Good journey, guys.